welcome back to a brand new episode of Off the Cuff on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. My name is Mike Hack, back after a week away due to me almost dying last week. And just to make this simple, this is going to be a show with your questions, your thoughts, and your emails over the last couple of weeks, and they're going to sort of spur into other topics as well. But I want to get to as many of those as possible on the show this week to make my life a little bit easier. So without further ado, let us introduce the rest of the crew. First, Mr. Craig Allen, who I just talk to seemingly every day at this point. It's nice to hear from you once again. And did I see on social media, Craig, that you were hoping to possibly get something off your chest this week on this show?
I don't know. Did I say that?
I thought you even hashtagged Off the Cuff.
No, that wasn't me. It must be another Craig Allen. Maybe it was the black sheep of the herd. Maybe it was Matt Allen. Maybe he had something to say. I'll go back and check my Twitters, and I'll check my hashtags, and I'll report back to you, Mike.
Yeah, I want to say it was like Thursday or Friday. You were like, might not do it on early stoppage, probably not between the links, but I feel like Off the Cuff may be the place. I thought I saw something quite like that, but maybe I was just imagining things. Maybe it's just the creative visions in my head as I was flu-ridden, but we'll see. You look around, and maybe you'll surprise us at some point on the show. We have Mr. Loudmouth himself, Mr. Kyle Steele, the second-ranked realtor in all of MMA. How are you, Kyle?
I was just going to say it was a fever dream. You must be having a fever dream. Can I give two shout-outs real quick? Let me give two shout-outs. Sure. One, the shirt I'm wearing, UFC 241. I did not go to this event. A fan of the show, Erin Murrow, she went to the show, asked me my shirt size, and sent me a shirt.
That's awesome.
So, appreciate that. Number two, shout out to Davidson Baker for working his first event as a credential media member. So shout out.
Yes, he did a great job. And the next time you talk to Davidson, sort of like off the record and off the air, ask him about that week, because it's he's got a lot of stories. You can write a book about his week.
I'm looking forward to it.
And of course, the man who is all over the place these days, Drake Riggs, doing great work everywhere. What's up, my man?
Oh, yeah, Craig Allen, you better snap into a Slim Jim, because I've been to the top of the mountain, and I'm coming to get you. Yeah. Now listen, Craig. Listen, I know you're Canadian, and it's like cold up there or whatever, man. But all that snow must be like freezing your brain or something, okay? Is that what they say? Okay. I'm dying to hear how you justify Conor McGregor as the number six welterweight in the UFC. 6. I haven't seen such an egregious treatment of an Irishman since, well, I guess that movie, The Irishman, that came out not too long ago. But that's besides the point, okay? If this proves anything, it's that we finally know the true identity of that one infamous Conor McGregor Twitter account, that's just always nut-hugging him. But I'm not going to say the name or anything, but you know who I'm talking about, all right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm sorry, Craig. I love you. But please explain, man.
You just used the word egregious. You don't even have Conor McGregor on your list. What are you talking about? I mean, come on. I'm the only one. And what Drake's referring to is the hardcore rankings. And we do up these rankings for every single division, every single week. And it's nice, actually, because you already have your list done up. And you can just go back in after a UFC event, add, subtract, what have you. I have McGregor at 6. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that has him in their top 15. So you know what?
Welterweight.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. He won at welterweight, and the UFC would do something similar, would they not?
Well, they haven't yet.
But I mean,
I'm good though, Mike. I'm good. Thank you for asking.
That was we had Drake Riggs doing a Randy Savage promo with boxing gloves on.
This was such a contentious start to the show. Normally we're like, hippies all loving each other.
We'll probably get there at some point, but maybe we won't. Maybe this is maybe just the week off is just what we needed to really go down that rabbit hole. But let's just start off right off the bat with the question that I've gotten the most of over the last 72 hours, the "How did you score it?" question following the main event of UFC 247. We talked a lot about the judging and the scoring of the main event and things like that, and whether Dominick Reyes got robbed and things like that. But we never actually broke down the actual way we scored the fight. And there's a lot of judging and scoring questions that we're going to get into. But Craig, let's start with you. As everybody already knows by now, Jon Jones retained his title against Dominick Reyes at UFC 247 on Saturday. It was a great fight. It was a very close fight, and no matter how you scored it, in my opinion, still, and so was everybody on the panel on Between the Links last night. It's hard to justify throwing the word robbery around. So I'm curious, how did you score the fight on Saturday? And if you watched it a second or third time, did your opinion change?
I watched it about a halftime, Mike. See, I'm able to pull the wool over everybody's eyes and fly by the seat of my pants on Between the Links. But truth be told, I watched about half of that fight. So my opinion probably doesn't hold a lot of water. But the bits and pieces that I did see, the reaction on Twitter, and going back and actually, watching it a full time, I had Reyes winning rounds 1, 2, and 3, Jones in round 4 and 5 decisively. Of course, rounds 2 and 3 were somewhat close, but I gave him to the challenger, and you can't have that champion type of bias. I know you shouldn't have it, but when the majority of media and fans score it for Dominick Reyes, and you have a score of 49-46, it just leaves more questions than answers, and it leaves you scratching your head wondering, how could somebody see a fight so differently from the rest of the crowd and also be empowered to have influence on that fight?
So in real time, the first round was the most decisive one for Reyes. The fifth round was the most decisive one for Jones. Those rounds have no questions. I've rewatched the fight. That has not changed. 1 and 5. In a live view, I had 2 and 3 both going to Reyes, and I had 4 going to Jones. Although I thought in real time that the fourth round was a lot closer than other people's opinions I was seeing. On a rewatch, I thought the second round was a hell of a lot closer than I remember it being. And then the third round, even more so. So there's an argument to be made that Jon Jones won 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, not 1, sorry, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I mean, there's an argument that Jones won 2, 3, 4, and 5. The scorecard that's getting ripped apart on a rewatch, I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, in real time, though, but here's the issue I have. In real time, I feel like everybody had a similar opinion. So on a rewatch where you're not listening to anything and you're just watching it and it's completely dead silent, that's when my opinion changes. But that's not what the judges are viewing. The judges are there and viewing it essentially in the way that I'm viewing it. It's from one angle as opposed to multiple camera angles, which if we have a question about what we would change about judging, I have an answer to that. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know how you could have been watching that in real time and seen what I was able to see watching it on silent, pausing it and thinking, because they couldn't do that. So if you watch it, you pause it and you think, yeah, I think Jones won the fight, honestly, where I thought the first go around, I thought Dominick Reyes clearly won. I was like, there's no question. He won 1 through 3, no doubt, probably won 4 and then lost 5. So I don't know. It's tough. On a rewatch though, I was wrong.
Drake, same Saturday, and then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whenever you got a chance to watch it, or have things changed since Saturday night?
So I've only watched it one time, and I missed it kind of as it was live. So I watched it on Sunday in full, and it's just kind of an interesting thing, I think, with just the fact that we don't all have the same rules in every state yet. That's still such a big problem, I think, and just gets people so confused. And it's hard after having the new rules for 3 years now, I think it is, because everybody's mentality, I think, I guess not a lot of people have read the rules in the community overall. So but for those who have, we've kind of adjusted to that, I think. So when watching this, I think that it was fairly, I would say, clear first 3 for Reyes, but not like he didn't destroy him or dominate him or anything. I just thought, he clearly edged those out. And then round 4, I think that was actually the closest round. And the thing with that round is, I think, depending on the rule set, new rules or old rules, we had the old rules here. Old rules, you give that one to Jones pretty easily because he had, the grappling and the takedowns that really did nothing, but he got them. And with the new rules, those don't mean shit, right? Those don't even count at all. But this was the old rules, so you give him that round. And then, everyone's talking about octagon control, which has never been a thing, no matter the rule set, which is just annoying. And the champion thing, you have to be the champion. That's just a complete myth. I don't know where that came. That's a pro wrestling thing. That's what that is. I don't know where that's one of the dumbest things ever. And yeah, I'm actually pretty surprised though that so many people think that Reyes seems unanimously won. At least most people do, because honestly, the commentary in that fight was so horrible, man. I mean, not to pick on like anybody specific, but John Anik was saying that a lot of things that Jones threw landed when they really obviously didn't. I was like, what are you seeing here? And then not like calling Reyes' shots and saying how tired he was when I really didn't think he looked that tired. Like, of course, he slowed down a little bit. It was a 5-round fight, but I didn't think it was that bad. So I'm actually pretty surprised that people, kind of ignore the commentary because it can, hypnotize people sometimes. But yeah, man, I'll have to, keep watching it over and over. But I don't know, seemed like Reyes' fight, but it wasn't, not a robbery. Let's not go there. I think that people are saying it was maybe the worst title fight robbery ever. I still think that's GSP Hendricks.
Yeah, I scored it 48-47 for Reyes on Saturday. I gave him rounds 1 through 3, and then going back and watching it a few more times, I was trying to look for things I didn't see and listen to things people were saying about it that I didn't take into consideration, because not only was I watching the fight, I was recapping it at the same time. I'm still rolling 48-47 for Reyes, barely though, like closer now. But I guess the best way to describe it is I went from maybe it's not a robbery to this is definitely not a robbery. Like, some fights you just need to watch again and pay close attention to, because I thought the second round on Saturday was all Dominick Reyes. I thought it was a clear-cut, easy round win for Dominick Reyes on Saturday. And I thought you were crazy to think otherwise. But going back and watching it again and watching it closely without the commentary, Jones did a great job defensively avoiding a lot of the shots that Dominick Reyes was throwing. And I felt like the third round was kind of similar as well.
Same.
It's a kind of a far stretch to even compare these two fights because the latter is just so ridiculous. But for comparison's sake, there were people out there that actually thought that Conor McGregor won the first 6 or 7 rounds of the fight against Floyd Mayweather, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Because if you actually watch the fight, Conor barely hit him after the first round. I don't think he hit him 50% of the time after that. It wasn't even close. Conor was throwing big shots and it was close and it looked good and the crowd was erupting. But he missed 3 out of every 4 punches he threw, especially after the 4th round, even though they look super close. Just because it looks good doesn't mean it's actually doing anything. And I think that's what Jon did quite well on Saturday, especially in that second round. I still think Reyes won, but it's a different 3-2 in my opinion than it was on Saturday night. Anybody want to add to that?
I completely agree. I mean, on the rewatch, again, watching it live, I thought the second round was absolutely no question. I'm like, this is not even a question. When I saw the scorecards and you have 2 judges that scored that for Jon, what on earth? What are they watching? This is crazy. And then again, you rewatch it the next day and it's like, oh shit, that round was a lot closer than I remember. So yeah, you really do have to. You have to rewatch these fights. If you think something's a robbery, or if you think something is uber close and it went the wrong direction, before you even voice an opinion, you almost need to go watch it again, then voice the opinion.
Yeah.
Because if you're just reacting on gut, you really don't know what you're saying.
Even on my recap, it's funny because Joe Rogan likes to say the word "he's hurt." No matter what happens,
he's hurt.
He's hurt. And I'm saying that, even in my recap, I'm like, oh, Jones is in trouble. He might be hurt. Reyes might finish this fight with this flurry. And then you go back and watch it, and you're like, what the hell was I watching? Because that's not what happened at all. That flurry, he landed 3 punches out of that whole flurry. So my God, but
if it was 2015, you would have heard, and it is all over. Unfortunately, 2020, you can't hear it. Well, unless you follow along with Bellator.
Yeah. Can you imagine Rogan and Goldberg doing a 3-man booth? Oof. That'd be some rough go-rounds. But in terms of the judging on Saturday and the word robbery being thrown around like crazy, Kyle, when you go back and reflect on UFC 247 as a whole, were there any of those decisions, in your opinion, where you think it was a clear robbery, that somebody really got hosed here?
No, but that's also because I'm like probably the rest of this panel, which is I'm very, very careful with what I refer to as being a robbery. If a fight's close, it's not a robbery, just flat out. Mm-hmm. If it's even remotely close, it's not a robbery. Yep. Now, if I'm in the corner of Andrea Lee, well then, buddy, that was robbery central. Far more of a robbery than Dominick Reyes, Jon Jones would be if you're comparing the two. So again, I don't consider any of these fights to be a robbery. The judging did feel a little weird, but again, when you have close fights, it makes sense that different people are going to see different things. That's how this works. If you're all watching a close fight, you're not going to have this collective group thing. So it makes sense. So to answer your question, no, I don't think anything was a robbery. But if anything could even be classified as it, I think it was the KGB fight. I think that to me was the one. Even I haven't rewatched that one, but I imagine if I do, I will still feel that way because I don't understand what Lauren Murphy did exactly.
Drake, robbery is obviously a term that gets thrown around very loosely in this sport these days, no matter what. Even if, like, people still think Thiago Santos was robbed against Jon Jones, which is just the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my entire life at this point. But did you see an actual robbery on Saturday?
No, I did not. But seems like most people think the most likely other one would be that Lauren Murphy and Andrea Lee one. And, I watched that one, but I didn't watch it as closely as I could have. I watched it pretty closely, and as it was happening, I actually thought that, Murphy did win it. I think maybe the first two rounds, 10-9. But I do need to rewatch it. I thought it was obviously I thought it was very close. I definitely don't think it was a robbery, but yeah, in real time watching it, not as intently as I could have, maybe about 75%, distracted by some friends or whatnot. I would give it, I thought Murphy did win it. So yeah, definitely no robberies on this card. I thought that Ewell winning was maybe a little bit more not as close as this one, actually. I watched that one more closely, though. So, again, I just have to rewatch this Murphy and Lee one. But, yeah, overall, no robberies, definitely not.
Yeah, I don't think there's a robbery per se. I thought Murphy and Lee was closer than a lot of people gave it credit for. I scored rounds 1 and 3 for Andrea Lee, so I thought she won 29-28. I did think Lauren won the second round, but they were close. There were some close rounds. I mean, if you score takedowns, like with this old rule set, Lauren got takedowns when she needed them in the last 30 seconds of the round. So I get that. But I'm sort of in agreement with you, Drake. I think Jonathan Martinez, if you're going to say anybody got robbed, I won't say he got robbed, but I'm going to say he got hosed real bad. And, we're going to get into the individual like scorecards and like scores in a moment. But Craig, was there a robbery or two on the card, like actual robberies in your opinion, where you're like, what the actual hell, bro?
Can we just skip ahead to the whole scorecard thing? Because I'm looking at this Andre Ewell, Jonathan Martinez fight, and yeah, it was close. To me, just looking at the stats, it's Ewell round 1, Ewell round 2, Martinez round 3. That's what it looks like. I mean, Martinez woofed on all of his takedown attempts, and based on total strikes and percentages, Ewell won the first 2 rounds. How did Joe Solis score that fight 30-27? Like, I mean, in the moment, different fight, and I'm just looking purely based on stats, but for 2 other judges to score it 29-28 in favor of either fighter, and then for one guy to call it a 30-27, what are we even doing here? What fight are you watching? And I'm going to make a joke here, and it's not truth. Are you watching something different on your phone than what's happening in the cage? That's a joke. That's a joke. But what are you watching? Seriously, really, what are you watching?
Are you saying... All right, so if we're going by the worst scorecard of the night, you're saying the 30-27 for Ewell is the worst in your opinion?
I mean, Kyle justified to me well enough, and I like his argument, that a 49-46 isn't too wild in the main event. But a 30-27 in that fight, like, it's close, but I mean, let's go round 3. Like, what, how? Why?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I honestly don't understand. And again, maybe I have to watch this fight over again. But Jonathan Martinez, 20 of 50 strikes, 40%, didn't go for any takedowns. Andre Ewell, 19 of 57 for 33%. Unless octagon control was a major proponent of that round, which it shouldn't be, strikes, dictate more than octagon control and advancing. How did you score that fight that way? And I understand, and I'm going to get into it now. The fake Joe Solis account that was on Twitter that said, 9% advance.
Hilarious.
Later on. Yeah, at first glance, I went, whoa, what is going on? You can't defend yourself on Twitter like that. And then I realized pretty quickly it was a fake account after Keith Schillen pointed it out to me. Shill the Thrill.
Two.
Go look up his Shirt Dog account. But realistically, if you're Joe Solis, like, what are you doing, man?
In terms of, just on the scorecard topic, I'm sure that you guys aren't forgetting this one, but hands down, one of the worst ever is that round 1 against James Krause going to Giles, right?
Oh my God.
No matter what scoring criteria we're using here, that's literally like it seems like an accident, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like one of the worst scorecards I think probably ever that I've ever seen was, I don't know if you guys saw it, but Mizuki Inoue versus Vernon Jandiroba in Invicta, where it was clear dominant victory for Jandiroba, 49-46, 50-45, even like that badly. She got 2 of those scorecards. Then the one other judge gave it 49-46 to Mizuki, and it was just like wait a minute, this literally has to be a mistake. It was like that bad. Like if you watch the fight, that literally makes no sense. That's what this was like. That's what it reminded me of. I was like, did he get the people wrong? Because that's the only thing that makes sense, right? I mean, doesn't matter what rule set we're using. It's like it's like he must not know who the people are, right? I mean, I don't know anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that was probably scoring round 1 for Trevin Giles is probably the most ridiculous thing that happened all night. But the 30-27 for Ewell was pretty bad. And honestly, even though I said that the fight was closer, 30-27 for Lauren Murphy was ridiculous too. I'm sorry. Yeah. Like as soon as I'm sitting there and I got 29-28 Murphy, 29-28 Lee, and then when I heard 30-27, I'm like, all right, Lee's going to win. Like there's no way Lauren Murphy wins with a 30-27. And then sure enough, lucky Lauren Murphy. I couldn't freaking believe it. Kyle, what's the worst one for the night for you?
So you guys nailed it. I mean, the worst like scorecard in totality would have been Ewell with a 30-27. The worst kind of singular moment would be scoring James Krause for round 1. So yeah, completely agreed. I'll say this to kind of maybe answer back to Craig a little bit. So I used to do a show on the network very early on. It was called A Day in the Life. It was just a way for me to reach out to people in the industry and deep dive into their job. So like I had Matt Marsden, who's the cut man for Bellator, and I had that's where I had Bruce Buffer on for the first time for an Octagon announcer, and I had I don't remember who all I had, but I had a color commentator, I had a play-by-play commentator, I had a judge, a referee. I don't remember who all I had, but a mental coach, I remember that too. But anyway, I had a judge on, and we were talking about the scenarios where one judge is just way off. And he kind of said what I said earlier, which is if you're watching a close round, like it makes sense that 2 people could see it differently. And if it just so happens that you have, say, 3 close rounds, that there is a world where one person can score all of the close rounds for one person. Like I don't think that's very common, which is why you don't see it very often. But when you do see it, I think we make it out to be way more egregious than it really is. Again, just go back and rewatch the Jon Jones Dominick Reyes fight. Scoring 2, 3, 4, and 5, I promise you, is not nearly as egregious as you think. I disagree, but it's not nearly as egregious as it first felt like. So again, I don't think you see it very often where one's judge just seems to be way in left field. And again, sometimes like the fight Drake was talking about, but more than likely somebody was just wrong. I do think that that's probably happened. Like somebody they're looking at the wrong person at the whole time for some strange reason. But again, if you have a close fight and say you got 29-28, 29-28, and then 27-30, that seems like where is this guy at? This guy is way crazy. But again, if they're close rounds, it makes sense that somebody could just score all 3 for the one person. You know what I mean? So I guess just to answer that point, it always looks, I think, way worse than it really is when it does happen. And it doesn't happen very often for that reason, because statistically, I don't think it's very probable that all close rounds would go to one person on one person's scorecard and not on the others.
Yeah, right, it's just a shame.
Go ahead.
It's just a shame that Joe Solis was Google trending in the wrong way.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Well, the other issue is I think you have boxing. Well, either way, we're not getting into that.
Well, I sort of want to stick on that with you, Kyle, because you said you do have some thoughts about the scoring and what needs to be done. And Kansas and Invicta is going to jump on this right away next month, open scoring. And I've talked to a bunch of fighters today that were part of UFC 247, some who won, some who lost. And it seems like most of the fighters were in favor of open scoring and knowing where they stand at all times. I understand, why people wouldn't want that. They think the third rounds can be boring, especially if someone's up 2-0. It is what it is. But do you think open scoring is the answer, or do you have a better idea?
No, I do not think open scoring is the answer. I don't think it's that bad. Listen, how many fights have you seen where a fighter is clearly winning the first and second round and then they just quit in the third? You don't typically see that. Fighters are in there to fight. Maybe their game plan's going to change, but whether you're telling them that they're winning or not, to me, isn't going to take that away. Most of the time, if you're winning rounds 1 and 2. Now, again, many times you could be wrong, but if you're winning dominantly, it's very obvious. They still go out for the third round. They still put on a show. Are you opening up the possibility of these third and say fourth and fifth rounds being really boring? 100%. But I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem. However, it's also just not the answer. That's not the problem. It's a nice little thing we can do. It's cute, but that's not what the issue is. So, even further than that, the number one issue, and I wonder if we all agree on this, the number one issue is that we're not all playing by the same rules. That has to change. You can't have, depending on the state you're going to, the UFC is a multi-billion-dollar organization. They don't have pull to say, hey, we're not going to come to your stupid state if you don't adopt these particular rules. Get the hell out of here. They'll just fight in Vegas every single time. Or they'll fight in California every single time, or New York, or wherever it is. They'll just fight in those places every single time. Stupid. If Virginia, you want a card, then buck up. You got to play by these rules, or you can't do it. The other thing is, and being a multi-billion-dollar organization, the UFC has at its disposal a way to revolutionize judging. Now, on Invicta or LFA or CES, NEF, whatever, they can't do this kind of stuff, and I get that. But the UFC can. So what the UFC can do, they can put people in isolation boxes. They can put a TV in front of them where they're seeing 3 different camera angles. They can make it to where they're not all talking to each other or sitting next to each other, where they're not blinded by a cage. Why on earth do you need to be blinded by a cage in 2020? There's cameras everywhere. Put them in isolation boxes in a back room, have cameras that are up over the octagon, 3 different angles. They can now watch it. Allow them to rewind if they need to. Why not? Who cares? Why does it have to be this pencil and paper? It reminds me of in baseball when they have the bullpen, where all of a sudden the guy walks over to a phone that's on the wall attached to a cord and calls down to the bullpen. What are we doing? So it's 2020. Let's revolutionize judging. You can't see it everywhere, but the UFC absolutely can. They got the money. They have the resources.
Drake, what are your thoughts on that, and what other ideas do you have to make judging and scoring just a little bit better than we saw on Saturday?
So when it comes to the open scoring thing, I think that, that's obviously not the answer, because it's not a fighter's problem, right? Because this is helping the fighters know what the judges are literally thinking as it happens, right? So the judges don't have to do anything different. I mean, maybe it'll make them think a little bit more because their stuff is going out as it happens. But I think it's going to be more effective in terms of motivation, because if you know exactly what's happening, and I've seen the example of Max Holloway thought he was winning the Volkanovski fight, right, and would have changed his plan if he knew he was down. Yeah, why wouldn't you, man? You're going to lose your title, then for sure you have to go for broke. I think that it can help with more exciting endings to fights for sure. So I'm all for that. And I mean, hey, if we get a boring one every now and then, it happens. Kyle hit that pretty good, I think. When in terms of the biggest problem, I think just everyone not being on the same page. That's not good. It's just too confusing for everybody. And I'm not on the side of the judges or anything, but having talked to certain people, and like Frank Trigg, for example, who former UFC title challenger, who is now a judge and a referee commentator. He does all that stuff now. He said that before he got into it, he thought, he knew the rules very well, as, a lot of fighters do. And, fans like to think they do. Everybody in the sport likes to think they know what's going on. But said he didn't know shit until he actually took Big John's training course and got into judging and refereeing and all that stuff, which, makes you think man, when you admit it until you actually go through this long process, because it takes 2 years and you have to get so many fights judged in amateur before you're even allowed to do pros and everything. Like he said, it took him a year, but that's because he really tried to get it as fast as he could. As fast as he could, it took him a full year. So I mean, these judges, I think, not these judges specifically, but judges overall, they probably know better than us for the most part because they've gone through this to get certified in the first place, at least with, most athletic commissions, I'm hoping and assuming. I don't know about Texas necessarily or some others, but yeah. So it just comes down to, if we're all on the same page, then there's less misconceptions among the general audience because, yeah, when the rules are changing and, they don't even make it that clear. Like UFC tells you at the very beginning of the early prelims, and then the next prelims. I don't even think they say it for the main card anymore. But that's the only time they let you know that which rule set we're under. So, and then it's just everybody needs to be on the same page. That's the thing. It's such a frustrating topic for me, man, because I love just clarity, in life. So that's my take on it.
I mean, here's sort of my take on it, because is there like a worse job in the sport or in combat sports than being a judge? Because not only does the pay absolutely blow, but it's the most thankless job possible, because like you don't get praise for giving a great 30 to 27 scorecard. Man, you nailed that. Here's an extra $50,000 for that great decision. But if you screw up, if you're Joe Solis, you are getting crushed. You're getting your tires flattened. It just sucks to be that guy right now. Like, there's no benefit to being a judge at all. Like, I can't think of one thing. Like, I don't know how much they're getting paid, but I know it's not very much. Like, how are we going to find the best of the best if you're paying peanuts? Like, and it's such a thankless job. Like, you get nothing for being a judge. Like, literally, you're paid to be kind of a dick. Like, that's literally the entire job. Like, what benefit is there to be a fucking judge in mixed martial arts? Like, there's nothing really exciting about it. And that's, you could regionalize, you could do it state by state. It doesn't matter. Being a judge sucks. So how do you find the best of the best for a sucky job? I just don't know how you do it. Like, people rag on being janitors, but I know a lot of janitors who probably make a gazillion times more money than a fucking judge does. So just to throw that out there, I think that's a big problem. You're not going to find the best of the best when you're paying like shit and it's such a sucky job. Craig, I like your regional approach. I think that makes a lot of sense, but I want to get your take on the open scoring. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this is going to have any legs after what happens in Kansas and Invicta, so forth and so on?
I'm going to ask Kyle a question. Kyle, here's a trivia question for you.
Ooh.
How many UFC events has the state of Kansas held?
Oh, gosh. Absolutely no idea.
One.
No.
One.
Wow.
Recently, too. Recently, you had...
Listen,
Derek
Ohio.
Lewis
I think
and...
Ohio's only had one, right? We're about to finally have our second one?
I don't know enough about Ohio.
Columbus has been...
Cleveland. I forgot they've had it in Cleveland.
Okay, but Kansas has had one UFC Fight Night 146 on ESPN Plus, number 4 with Dos Santos and Lewis. If they're trying to attract more events, I don't know if this is it. Yeah, I think Drake brought up a really good point. If Invicta tries it out, and maybe it works for them or it works for another organization, maybe this could become the model. I just don't think open scoring is really the way. And Mike, you're talking about judges and the type of pay that you get, and I can't equate it to being a referee, but I will equate it to being a referee. Mike, I used to referee minor hockey, and I used to umpire minor baseball. And I did it for a bit. The pay sucked. You get paid about $11 a game, but when you're 15, it's the cat's ass. You get a free drive there because you can't drive yet, and you get yelled at by parents, and you get humbled by coaches. And Mike, Kyle, Drake, listening audience, how many years did I referee hockey, and how many years did I umpire baseball? I'm going to give you the answer. The same amount of events that the UFC has had in Kansas, I did in years in refereeing and umpire. That was one, because I absolutely hated it. The pay sucked. So for these judges, I kind of understand where they are at. It's a thankless job. If you get it right, nobody cares. And if you get it wrong, they're going to let you know. And like you said, they're going to slash your tires.
So here's something I just looked up real quick. A Major League Baseball umpire makes $120,000 a year. Okay? NFL referee, $201,000 a year. So there is a difference there. And I know like judging and refereeing are sort of two different things, but at least like if you're a football referee, if you're refereeing Pop Warner and you have goals and aspirations to be an NFL referee, like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you know your bank account's going to get fatter eventually with hard work and dedication. if you start judging amateur MMA fights in Bangor, Maine, or, Lincoln, Nebraska, or whatever, like, there's no big light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I'm sure I can't think of maybe anybody on this earth that, as like a 13-year-old kid, and he's at his career day, he goes, "Oh, where's the MMA judges table? Like, I can't wait to go there and get the pamphlet on that." Like, I just don't see a benefit there. Like, you have to sweeten the pot somehow. I think that's just part of the equation. Otherwise, you're just going to get a bunch of lazy, retired people who don't give a shit and just are like, "Well, I already work for the commission anyways. I guess I'll be a judge. Like, it's an extra $5,000. We can go to Florida. We can go to family vacation. Yay!" But you're not going to get the best of the best, and I guess that's my take on that. But Kyle, you want to say something else?
Well, just real quick. Oh, also to say something to Craig, I was a baseball umpire growing up. My brother actually went to, I believe it's in Sarasota, which is the umpire school that you have to go through to get to the major leagues. My brother actually went to that. He's not in the majors or the minors, but he did go to it and did his thing. So we have a long lineage of baseball umpires in the Steele family clan. I was going to say to a point that I think everybody kind of made, which is how bad judging sucks. So I just want to make sure, like, how bad that job would suck. I just wanted to say, like, when I'm making my suggestions, I put no blame on judges whatsoever. I don't think they're doing anything wrong. I think that the commission, and then by virtue, literally, I blame the UFC entirely. I think it's 100% the UFC's fault. They have an immense amount of leverage that they're choosing to not use to force their hand to commissions. They could absolutely force their hand. If they want money, this is what you got to do. You got to set this up and make this available so that we could do it. We'll cover a piece of it, whatever it is. Like, we'll make it to where you can do it. We'll set everything up logistically. But I don't blame the refs at all. I blame the commissions 40%, and I blame the UFC 60%.
Fair enough. That is a great point. No doubt about that. But let's move on to some more questions, because most of these are the buy-sell questions, so we'll just go from there. We got a bunch of them, but let me see. The one, okay, this is like the one I just got like 25 minutes ago as we were recording. So Bellator makes a huge announcement today that on May 9th, Bellator 243 is going to happen. The main event is Ryan Bader defending his light heavyweight title against Vadim Nemkov. And that's not even the blockbuster. The co-main event is the blockbuster, with Gegard Mousasi fighting Douglas Lima for the now vacant middleweight title with Rafael Lovato Jr. And that whole situation just is awful. And hopefully he can get back to being as normal as possible and he can recover from everything. It's just a terrible situation. And I feel like Bellator jumped on this real quick. Lovato vacates the title and we already have a title fight booked. But as unfortunate as this situation is, this is a huge fight for May 9th. It's one of the biggest fights of the year, if not the biggest fight booked for the year so far. Kyle, I just want your initial reaction to the Mousasi Lima booking.
I mean, I like what Bellator is doing, man. They're making interesting stuff. They've really embraced this like champ thing, and they're loving it. They're digging it. They're doing everything they can. I like when they had they released like the 4 squares, like who's going to be the next challenger for middleweight, and in the bottom right hand corner it was Ryan Bader, and we're all just like, what in the like? First of all, let's make it happen. I don't know how that's going to happen. Bader might have to like cut one of his legs off, but like, let's make it. If that's even a remote possibility, let's see that bad boy happen. But he's about to make 205, right? So people are saying they never think he's going to make that anymore. So if he makes that and he does it easily, listen, maybe that's where they're trending. They're just going to try to create as many meaningful champ, potentially champ. I don't know. Again, I don't think they're going to actually do it, but they teased it at the very least. I love the booking. I'm totally cool with it. I think it has an obvious outcome, but boy, given just even this last UFC card, I cannot be trusted with my obvious outcomes, because I thought Jon Jones was absolutely going to walk through Dominick Reyes, and I'm a big Dominick Reyes fan. So, I've been wrong. I imagine Mousasi absolutely dominates that fight and should be a pretty heavy favorite, but I don't know. Who knows?
Craig, I know you're bummed Ryan Bader's not fighting for the 185-pound title. So after, wiping away the initial tears and getting over that sadness early on once you found out the news, how did you react to the Mousasi Lima booking?
It has been 2 years, 3 months, and 8 days the last time that Ryan Bader fought for the 205-pound belt. How bitchin' would it have been if Ryan Bader fought Gegard Mousasi and then fought Vadim Nemkov in the same night? Would have been pretty cool. And then, you know what would have happened? Scott Coker would have signed a deal for Douglas Lima to fight Kamaru Usman like he's trying to let on now. I mean, Scott, give me a break. PR team, give me a break. But really, the fight's going to be good. I think it'll be good. Now, was I rock hard for Rory McDonald and Gegard Mousasi? You bet your cheese curds I was. Come on, Canada's finest against the Moose? And the fight sucked. But Douglas Lima is like a generational talent. They have him locked up for what? Like 5 years? Same thing with Lima McFarlane. They love these big deals that they just signed with their 2 stars. And I think that's great. And I really do have full confidence in Douglas Lima. I think it'll be a more competitive fight. I'm a Bellator stan, so I think this is all great.
Drake, you love this fight, right?
It's going to be more competitive because I don't think Lima's going to do an Imanari roll in the second round. That was the first event I covered, by the way. That was really fun. But yeah, no, this fight's really awesome. They were teasing it like a week ago or whenever, as soon as like Lima was teasing it, right? So yeah, that put it in my head initially, and I was like, damn, that would be really interesting. Yeah, very, very interesting fight. But, the purist in me is also like, kind of like, well, I don't know, because if Lima wins, well, I mean, I guess currently they only have 3 champions going from heavyweight to in men, just overall, right? They only have 3 men champions at the moment, which is really weird. And it kind of reminds me of one, because I know one was getting really heavy into, making these champion versus champion double champ type things happen, like last year or whenever it was. And I think they still have some, obviously, Ong Lan Song. It might be the only one right now, but either way, it reminds me of that. And I don't know if that's a good thing in the long run for Bellator, just because it's going to just destroy, the divisional buildup. But I don't know if they really care about it. It's really fun to see it. So I'm like, am I that mad about it? No, but yeah, no, it's going to be an awesome fight. But, I think about all these other little things as we go forward.
I mean, obviously it's a big fight. I think it's one of the biggest fights Bellator can make. And I do worry that Lima, sans Eminari role will sort of be dealt the same hand that Rory McDonald did. I mean, there's obviously a massive difference between Rory at 170 and Rory at 185 taking on Mousasi, who could easily fight at 205 without any hesitation whatsoever. And I'm sure Lima learned from that. He's not going to make those same mistakes, and he can only do so much with the information that you have to try to equate it into getting a victory in the cage. And maybe Lima has an answer, but my one knock, and this is something Bellator has been doing for so long that drives me friggin' crazy. Why are you being so cute with the main event and the co-main event? Like, how is this fight not the main event? Like, how? How is Ryan Bader defending the 205-pound title not the co-main event to a guy potentially trying to win 2 titles? Like, the bigger fight, like, no one on Twitter was like, yay, Ryan Bader's in the main event. They were like, holy shit, Roy McDonald and Douglas Lima are about to fight for the vacant middleweight title. Like, how does that not be the main event? It drives me friggin' crazy. But I'm still going to watch the fight, and I'm still going to be excited. But we'll move on to the buy-sell portion of the festivities, and we're going to get right after this, Craig Allen. Buy or sell Dana White's thought process when it comes to Valentina Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes, which is keep them where they are for as long as possible. Let them just keep knocking off contenders. No need to rush into a third fight whatsoever.
Explain the thought process of a man who has a gun in his office with a bunch of different oddities as bullets, or a picture on his wall that he thinks is cool that upsets people, of a Yakuza member doing his girlfriend. I can't explain that man's thought processes whatsoever. He also has a room full of just names on boards. It's strange. It really is. But when it comes to Valentina Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes, let him beat everybody. I like it. I'm fine with it.
Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to see it again. Certainly not right now. I think Amanda Nunes needs to continue to dominate 135 in the way that Rousey did, and truly, I think she's already eclipsed Rousey, but There's still some more to do to finish that job, and I think ultimately that's legacy is what she's after, or what she should be after. And then 145, she's taken out. Again, we looked at her record the other day, and I know everybody knows this, but when you actually see it, it's just crazy. She's beaten every single champion that has ever existed at 135 and 145. It's kind of nuts. So, keep doing that. Keep just absolutely dominating. Why fight someone you beat twice? I mean, just there's no point. There's no. Again, if it happens, if it's booked tomorrow, am I excited? Sure, but that's not what needs to happen. There's no point. Shevchenko, if anything, needs to go down to 115. It's been very documented that she has no issues cutting to 125. In fact, from what I've heard, she basically doesn't cut at all. So if you really want to do something, go down to 115. There's some compelling stuff there, and you could be an absolute dominant force there. I don't see the need to go up.
Drake?
So we're buying the idea of this, not that Dana's actually, this is what he's going to stick to, right?
Dana's actual idea, like what he said, which could change within the next hour. By the time the show ends, Dana White could be like, Barack Obama could report that Nunes and Shevchenko are headlining International Fight Week. Who the hell knows?
Probably what's going to happen. I buy it only for the reason that at this exact moment, I think Aldana earned her shot, and you should give her the shot. Featherweight, it's whatever. I think that needs to be next for Nunes. But yeah, at the moment with Shevchenko, it's just like Calderwood and Modafferi. I think that'd be great to see them fight, but they're teammates, so they're not going to fight. So it's like the best contender isn't super clear, but it's like, yeah, whatever. You can just give her the fights. She doesn't care who she fights. She'll take anyone, anywhere, anytime, all that. So I think that the fight would be big. It'd be cool to see. I think it would be the best or the craziest kind of all the good stuff about it would be if Nunes was to somehow be able to make 125 and try and get triple champ. But I don't know how possible that is. I know she's kind of teased it in the past, and then that presents the problem of, possibly blocking up divisions again, which is a thing that I think Dana might think about too, because, Nunes has already beat Shevchenko twice. If she was to become, let's say, a triple champ, or, let's assume that first rather than Shevchenko going back up. If she was to become a triple champ, then, she's got 3 divisions on hold. Well, two, I guess. 2 divisions, 2.5. And so that takes away potential headliners. Every pay-per-view has to have a title on the line, so then that's less people to do that. So, I'll buy the idea that let's keep them away from each other for now. I'd like to see a third fight. Maybe it'd be fun. It'd be cool and all that, but not at all necessary. No.
Yeah, I'll buy it. No need to mess around. Just let them be as dominant as possible. Unless the UFC re-signs Ryan Bader, and that's the co-main event to Ryan Bader versus like Misha Serkinov. some sort of UFC fight card. But this one's a lot of fun, Kyle. Buy or sell that after Chaos Williams' win over Alex Morano, the fight to make is Chaos versus Platinum Mike Perry.
I knew that was what it was going to be. I don't know how I knew that. Is that a feeling?
I mean, sell? I don't know. That's pretty quick. I mean, let's get another fight or two. I mean, that wasn't that big of a win. I mean, it was it's a big win, but it's your first fight. Let's at least have another one. Mike Perry is a very big name. So I don't. That's a bit quick for me. I would like to see another fight or two. Let's actually see what we have, because he may very well never win a fight again in the UFC and be cut in 3 fights. So you know what I mean. Like let's just see what we got here. Let's not go too quick here. Also, real quick to go back to what the prior question. It is weird that more than one person used the word fun to describe a third fight between Shevchenko and Nunes, considering their second fight was horrendous. So it's interesting that we're throwing the word fun around that loosely.
Drake, Chaos, Platinum, what do you think?
Hey, we didn't even know about the guy before our last podcast, or maybe not know about him, but we didn't know he was fighting. So we discovered that together, okay?
That's right.
So, why not? Sure, I'll buy that. Let's have some fun, some real fun. Kyle, you happy now? let's do it. I don't know who you would match Perry against. I mean, sure, there are plenty of options, but hey, I'm down for it. He looked really damn good. That was a really big upset. I didn't see it coming. I said that I liked Morono, and Craig gave me some shit last time we were on. Put him down quickly and all that. So yeah, why not? Let's do it.
I'm so in on this fight. I mean, especially with like Morono being he's probably ranked higher. Like if Alex Morono won, no matter who he fought, like it was he was supposed to fight Diego Lima, right? So if he beats Diego Lima, he's probably in the top. He's if he's not in the top 15, he's sniffing it. Like that's 5 wins in a row. That's you're just about there. So Morono's probably ranked a little bit higher than Perry, anyways. So if he wants it, give him the friggin' fight. Craig, what do you think?
Give Chaos Williams the winner of Miguel Baeza and Matt Brown, or the winner of Callan Potter and Sung Kinan, or the winner of Maki Pitolo and Takashi Sato. Give him anybody in the division that's not Mike Perry. Come on, build this guy up slowly. He's got knockout power. He beat absolute cans on the way up. And then he has a crazy win over a guy who I'd picked to win, and then everybody absolutely torched me on YouTube and said that I'm a filthy casual. Do you honestly think I'm a casual MMA fan? This is my chance to address those people that don't listen. What are you saying? Listen to yourself. Read your own comments. Come on.
That's hilarious. Drake, buy or sell that Jon Jones after Saturday night is the or still the best pound for pound fighter in the world today?
Sell. No, I didn't think he was before. I don't think he is now. so I don't think so.
so who is your answer then?
At the moment, okay. Well, I really don't like pound for pound rankings in general. So that's the thing. They're just a marketing tool. You know, there's too many definitions. I really don't like them. But if I have to have them, I would probably say Nunes. And I know, you're going to be low, but I don't even want to talk about pound for pound rankings. I don't like them I really don't like them. They're stupid.
I get where you're coming from, but I'm going to address it. I believed it heading in, and I'll still buy it because I'm going to throw out a name that you can compare to Jon Jones outside of the drugs and the arrests and the crimes and all that stuff. But we're going from like a purely just a greatness standpoint. Tom Brady. Whether Tom Brady throws for 400 yards and 7 touchdowns or $165 with a touchdown and a pick, the guy finds a way to win every Sunday. Like, it's crazy. Like last year, he had nothing around him, and that's just what it is. But Jon finds a way to win all the time. And until he doesn't, I'm sticking with Jon. Like I'm sticking with him until he's. I don't think he's been knocked off that pedestal just yet. Craig, what do you think?
Yeah, Conor McGregor's still number 1 pound for pound. Come on. I mean, I know I had him at 6 in my welterweight rankings, but it's Conor McGregor, number 1. No, I mean, you could throw Demetrius Johnson's name in there. You could throw Khabib. You could throw Nunes. And like Drake, I don't like pound for pound rankings. They're just stupid on their face. But to me, Jon Jones looks more human than a lot of those top fighters. So I don't know if I'd have him at number 1.
Kyle?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, there is an old saying, and I want to get to this. There is an old saying that every time Mike Heck says the name of Tom Brady, an angel gets his wings. So I'm glad another angel got their wings on this podcast. I would say I'm with the consensus here. I do not like pound for pound rankings. There are 50 different metrics you could use to get to the pound for pound rankings. However, in any metric that I use, Jon Jones would be at the top, and him having a close fight with an incredible athlete and Dominick Reyes, to me, does not take that away. So, he's still fine. If he would have lost, maybe maybe we're having a different conversation, but he didn't lose. He won. So you don't drop down on a loss. That's not how that works.
Buy or sell, and I got like 7 or 8 of these, and I'm just gonna get this out of the way, and I'm selling it so freaking hard. Buy or sell, Craig Allen, Dustin Poirier versus Nate Diaz will happen.
What division?
I mean, they're talking 170. That seems to be what Poirier is saying. He's going to go up to 170 and fight him, but I guess there's been crickets on the Diaz side of things. That's mostly the reason why I'm selling the shit out of it.
Are you saying the odds are different depending on the weight class, Craig?
Yeah. They would be.
Okay.
Dustin Poirier would be like a minus 1,200 favorite at 155, and he'd be like a minus 1,000 at 170. Creepy or not, when I was in Florida last week, I pulled into ATT and saw Dustin Poirier walking in, and he doesn't look like he's at 170 right now. Maybe
creepy or not.
That's kind of creepy. Would I buy it? Yeah, why not? That's a fun fight. Make it happen.
Kyle?
I kept wondering why Craig was sending me pictures from behind bushes. I couldn't see who it was when he was sending it to me, but I guess it was Dustin Poirier. Yeah, I would sell that pretty hard. I don't think. I think the next time Diaz fights at this point, it's going to be either Conor McGregor or it's going to be not Dustin Poirier. I don't know exactly who it would be, but it won't be him. So yeah, sell.
Drake?
Yeah, sell. It doesn't really mean anything anymore, right? I mean, Poirier's lost since then. Nate's lost since then. And when, I think about like the Anthony Pettis fight, that was kind of like get him back into the mix and everything, as opposed to when he was going to fight Poirier and everything for Diaz. But now he got that out of the way, got the win. Then he fought Masvidal, which was the big BMF title fight and everything. Lost that one. Now he's kind of left with, what? He's not going to be a guy who's trying to climb the ladder or anything. He's not going to fight just all the time again or anything. So if he does, it'll probably, most realistically maybe be that third Conor McGregor fight. If that's to happen, I feel like that's not very, not the most realistic option for Diaz or Conor at the moment. I think that we'll probably see Poirier versus Gaethje 2 next at this rate, just with how everything's looking. I would be very, very surprised, if they rebook Poirier and Diaz, and especially at 170. It just doesn't seem like it makes any sort of sense for anybody other than being a fun matchup.
I would agree with that. This one's from Angelo. Kyle. Okay. Is Kamaru Usman, even after beating Colby Covington, buy or sell, is he the least quote unquote needle moving UFC champion in the promotion? So, in other words, Kyle, if I'm making sense of this question, Usman right now needs an opponent bigger than he is to main event a pay-per-view because he can't sell it on his own. With him being a champion, is he like the guy who moves the needle the least compared to all the other champions in the UFC? Is
Weili Zhang still the champion at 115?
Yes.
Okay, then no. So
how dare you?
How dare you?
She's not.
China.
She's not moving the needle any more than Kamaru Usman is. So who's at 125? Shevchenko, sure. 135, you got Nunes. 145, you got Nunes. Going through the males at 125, it's up for grabs. Up for grabs. You got Cejudo at 35. Of course, he moves it. You got Volkanovski for it's Weili Zhang is the only one that doesn't move it as much as Kamaru Usman. So I guess sell.
Drake, I'm excited to hear you react to what Kyle just said. I don't think you agree with that, do you?
No, I definitely do not. As a strong supporter of the Chinese people, no, I think Volkanovski's probably the least right now. I mean, come on, he's brand new champion, so right there automatically makes him the least. We haven't even seen his potential yet to move the needle, and I just feel like he's probably the smallest name. I mean, what has he done besides beat Max to really get his name? I mean, and even the Aldo one, I feel like didn't really put his stock and name too much out there aside from the hardcore fans, not even the hardcore fans, like people who watch pretty regularly. But casuals, do they know who Volkanovski is? At least casuals watched, Usman beat up Covington because they knew about Covington and didn't like Covington and all that stuff and the Trump and everything fun about that. So, no, I think, by default, it's got to be Volkanovski, right? And definitely not Weili Zhang.
Yeah, I think it's Volkanovski right now, but at the end of the year, it might not be. Maybe Volkanovski gets the Holloway fight. Maybe they do it in Australia and do it in a big setting in a big stadium or something. Volkanovski has an emphatic finish of Max Holloway, and he gets this rousing ovation with all these fans, and it's just a crazy scene. We've seen what happened to Stipe Miocic when he got that pop. We saw what happened to Conor McGregor when he got that pop in his home country. So maybe something like that happens and kind of changes things around. But I'm going with Volkanovski right now. Do you have another thing to say, Drake?
If I can add in one more thing also, think about, okay, you're only as good as your last fight, right? I'm not sure if I really like that saying or not, but I'm going to use it here for this example. Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman, that was a much more fun, exciting fight than Volkanovski versus Holloway. I think you can pretty easily say that. And they fought on the same card and everything. People remember that a lot more than Volkanovski's win, I think. So, and they're going to remember, oh, at least we saw this guy do all that. That's just the point that I wanted to make when it comes to, in terms of, the excitement factor, who you're more likely to want to watch again after their most recent fight. Yeah, I think people are going to want to see Usman again. I'm sure his personality is maybe a little meh or something, but hey, Volkanovski's not super exciting in that area either at the moment.
Yeah, I think Usman's got a little more cringe to his repertoire.
Yeah, that's fair.
Than Alex Volkanovski has right now. Craig, what are your thoughts on Usman being the least needle-moving champion right now?
Mike, who's the vacant flyweight champ?
You are.
Gaddy.
Manny Bermudez is.
Oh, Manny Bermudez. My goodness. Yeah, no. I mean, I would fade that one. I would sell it. Realistically, who's moving the needle in, major countries like Peru, Ukraine, and Kyrgyzstan? That would be Valentina Shevchenko. So Shevchenko or Volkanovski for me are probably the two lowest on the totem pole. I agree with Drake. Weili Zhang or Zhang Weili is definitely moving the needle in China. And then in terms of just overall status, I think if you're on the highest rated, biggest podcast in the entire world, you're probably doing something right. And at least Kamaru Usman's been on Joe Rogan Experience.
That's a great point.
I got to say, out of all the fights that have been booked so far, and I can't believe I'm going to agree with Dana White again, Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I cannot wait for that fight. That fight fascinates me in so many ways. But that's just my take on that. This is an actual question, Craig Allen, and this is directed towards you. I don't know if you know a person named Jason Salvi, but it's literally directed towards you. It's an actual question. Buy or sell Manny Bermudez's next fight should be at heavyweight.
Thanks, Jason. I don't know you, but I'm glad that you asked this question. Realistically, Manny Bermudez's next fight should be at 173 pounds, because if he fights, it's usually 3 or 4 pounds over the weight tolerance. Listen, MMA Junkie, of all people, put out an article of how Manny Bermudez missed weight, and I have video of the fight, and I have info, whatever, but I've never seen a less enthusiastic crowd about a title, and I have air quotes here, win by a guy. And I talked about him between the links last night, but the crowd threw the most polite jeers to that fighter, saying, hey, you suck because you missed weight. Like, they were very, very polite about it. But realistically, Manny Bermudez in his next fight, get it together, man. I mean, you want to be nice to the guy, but what are you doing?
All right, a couple more here before we say goodbye. I've been going for over an hour. I think the referee and the judging conversation really stole the show here. But this is some very interesting news over the last couple of days. There's more so confirmed today. But Kyle, we'll start with you. Buy or sell that Brad Katona or any of the reported / confirmed release former rosterees should have been released by the UFC?
Oh, boy. Everyone on this podcast network, I imagine, knows my love for Ben Saunders. And it's very upsetting to see a man of that talent get let go. Listen, I saw that entire list. Everybody should have been released probably a while ago. Outside of one or two names that should have been released right away. Ben Saunders should have been released 6 years ago. So he's just been hanging on by a thread for quite some time. I don't know whose nudes he had. I have no idea. But that guy's just been hanging around forever. And the whole list kind of felt that way too. There was nobody on that. I don't remember which versions buy or sell, but there was nobody on that list that should have stuck around.
Drake, what do you think? Maybe we'll go specifically with Brad Katona. And is there any other names on that list that you were really surprised got released? Maybe we're not do a buy sell here, but just out of that list, besides probably Katona, I'd say that's probably the name that more people were surprised about than anybody else.
He was the most surprising, real quick. Sorry. He was the most surprising, but I'm still okay with it.
Was there anybody else besides Katona, or even maybe Katona wasn't, that surprised you on that list?
Yeah, 'cause I'm looking at it right now, and hey, it's pretty good. I mean, the Brandon Davis one gets me a little bit. I don't know what his losing streak is like or anything like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he looked like he was coming on a bit. I mean, putting on, fun shows. So it's always kind of surprising when a guy who's pretty entertaining gets cut. And I feel that kind of way about Lucy Pudilova, even though she definitely was not winning very much recently. So I'm fine with that one too. But it's like, she was exciting. Sometimes it seems like they give the female fighters maybe a little bit more leeway at times, especially at flyweight. But yeah, the Brad Katona one is very interesting too, especially, tough winner, 2-fight losing streak. So I'm kind of like, well, you've given people shots off of worse than that. So it's just kind of, I look at it comparatively. For the most part, though, yeah, it's very fine. I'm not super upset about the Katona one. Definitely surprising. I would have kept him for one more, because I think he's pretty solid. And even one of those losses, I don't know if it was his last one or the one before. I think it was the first one, the Dvalishvili one. I thought it was pretty close, and I might have even scored it for him. I can't remember at the moment. But either way, yeah, I think Brad definitely should have got one more shot. But I think they just didn't think he was that exciting. Maybe could have been the thing here. And then plus the 2 losses in a row. But I mean, come on, man. Let's let Tough live on for a little bit longer.
Yeah, Brandon Davis was 2-5 in the UFC. He lost 4 out of his last 5. The one win was against Randy Costa on like days' notice, and he still got cracked pretty good in that one. But he lost back-to-back split decisions on his way out at 135 pounds. I'll sell. I mean, I'm just gonna pretty much mimic what Drake said. But again, we got Contender Series coming up in a few months, so there's 20 to 30 new roster spots that are going to be filled. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more names on a list like that, similar before the Contender Series starts. Because you know how Dana feels about the Contender Series, and who knows if he does actually bring the Ultimate Fighter back. Because then, if he does, then that's even more guys and gals that could be coming in as well. So I feel like we're going to see a lot more cuts over the next few months than maybe we've seen in a while. Craig, what do you think? Anything really surprise you?
Yeah. Everybody in the Balkans, you can stick it, because they were so hard on me when Jamal Hill fought Darko Stozic. And Darko Stozic, he's so good, and he's going to fight ranked opponents, and Alexander Rakic, and this, that, and the other. And he laid an egg against Jamal Hill in North Carolina. So screw you, people in the Balkans. And as far as all these fighters are concerned, it's a shame we don't get to see Salim Touari's chest tattoo and his bad cardio. It's a shame that we don't get to see Luke Jumo fight once every 5 years. It's a shame that Lucia Pudzilova lost her last, 4 fights. It was cool that she co-main evented in the Czech Republic. It's a shame that the UFC let Liz Carmouche go. And you hate to see people losing their jobs, but none of these names stood out to me. I always wish for more from Daniel Spitz, because I like long-rangey guys in the upper weight classes. But apart from that, yeah, no real surprises. And the other thing I do want to say, and you brought it up, it is a shame that we lost Brad Katona, because is he from Winnipeg? Is he from Ireland? I don't really know, but I like that that little fella.
And one more thing about Pudilova. I feel pretty confident she'll probably end up in Bellator, so it's not the worst thing for her.
Yeah, that's true.
Feel safe about that.
And listen, the PFL's looking for people too, so there's some opportunity there. Justin Willis is over there now, so the grass is always greener, so to speak, sometimes, especially with a million pieces of grass. So I was told on this particular question, and they didn't leave a name, that I have to start with Kyle here, because this is a Kyle kind of a question, and it has nothing to do with Holly Holm. Start with Kyle, please. Buy or sell UFC Rio Rancho on paper is a C- or better.
Perfect.
They're starting with me because of my angst towards these cards. You know what? On paper, this is one of the better cards we've had. So I think this is above a C-. I love this card. I love the narratives. I like stories. Give me stories. Give me something to work with here. So and I'm not looking at the card right now, but I just remember seeing the card and going, "Yep, I'm all about it."
Wow, I am blown away at that answer, Kyle. I have to say, I'm shocked. I thought your head was going to explode, and we were getting an F. You're all getting an F, like Saved by the Bell.
Can I say? And again, I want to. I get you got to eat crow when you're wrong. I was shitting all over last week, and the card was fantastic. It was fantastic. So, I when you're wrong, you're wrong. But I think this will be a very, very good card. And again, on paper, it's not a pay-per-view. So I don't hold it to the same standard. It's not a pay-per-view.
That's a great
point.
It's
a fight night card. And as far as fight night cards are concerned, man, I wish I had the card up. But if I had the card up, I would go through it. Somebody go through the fight card when it's your turn and tell me how it's not a good card.
All right.
All right.
We will.
Please, Mike,
please, Craig's ready.
Please, Mike, me. Okay, Kyle. There's nothing that gets my dick harder than the first fight on this card. You've got two guys at flyweight.
Well, don't start at the first fight. Come on, start at the top.
Paulian Paiva is a ranked UFC flyweight, and he's 0-2 in the UFC. I don't care if his fight with Kai Kara France was close. He's 0-2 in the UFC. And then you've got Mark De La Rosa, who, oh, by the way, he's lost his last two fights. There's nothing that gets me out of bed in the morning more than two flyweights that are 0-2 in their respective last two fights, kicking off a card in Rio Rancho, New Mexico.
Start at the top, you cheat. You know exactly what to get. Just go to the main card, punks.
All right. You've got a guy without a nickname fighting a guy whose former nickname was Beastin 25-8. Great fight. Really excited about that. You've got a guy that believes in the power of thunderstorms and crystals fighting a guy who does moonsaults off the cage. This fight card is like a cracked out dream of a card.
That
it's
sounded
so weird.
Incredible. Listen to someone play his description back for him so he can see how wrong he is.
Then a guy who got obliterated 2.5 weeks ago fighting a guy who will wrestle the hell out of you and kick you with tree trunks of legs in Devin Clark. Then Devin Clark and Daquan Townsend. Do you want me to continue through this card?
Yes, I do.
Varela has one of the most egregious bans in MMA in her home country. She's going to be fighting Montana De La Rosa, whose husband kicks off the card and is 0-2 in his last two fights. Brock Weaver and Kazulu Vargas or Rodrigo Vargas. That fight is fun. I like that. Medeiros Venata, fun, 6-6 in the UFC versus 2-4-2 in the UFC. You know, a couple guys.
Don't just dismiss that fight. Don't just dismiss that fight. Don't just dismiss that fight.
My favorite fight on the card is Daniel Rodriguez versus Tim Means because I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, Daniel Rodriguez in his fight to get into the UFC beat a guy who was 15-26. Do you want me to keep going through this?
Yes, I want you to go through the whole card.
Okay, next fight. John Dodson, Nathaniel Wood is fun because John Dodson, you can't have a fun fight against John Dodson, or you can, but he makes it difficult. Hot Sauce is a cool nickname for Scott Holtzman taking on Jim Miller. Lyme disease hasn't slowed him down. He puts on decent fights. Ray Borg, Rogerio Bontorin, that's a fun fight because Bontorin's going to beat the bejesus out of Ray Borg. And Casey Kenny, Merab Duashvili, I mean, what can I say? Casey Kenny was a 2-division LFA champ, and Merab Duashvili. What's the best part of a Merab fight? It's when, and I'm going to say this away from the microphone, it's when Matt Serra goes, "Come on, Merab! Come on, Merab!" And just wait. The icing on top of the cake is the fact that I spent hours, and I mean hours, on a video about Nico Montano and how she fought Juliana Pena. It didn't make sense, but now it makes sense. She's going to fight Macy Chason. And I filmed it, and I edited it. And now all of a sudden, Nico Montano out of her fight, and in steps in Shanna Young, who, Drake, you'll know her quite well because of her last 3 fights, 2 of them have been 1-rounders, and then she refought in a 3-round fight and got the win there. So now she's in the UFC. And she lost in Contender Series and got submitted, and then she lost after that and got submitted. There's nothing that gets me more excited than a card from Rio Rancho, New Mexico. You might as well put every other card in Wichita, Kansas, and we have open scoring after this, Kyle.
Kyle, does that change your grade at all?
Absolutely not. In fact, some of the things he was saying made me way more excited. Are you kidding me?
I think if there's any sort of card that I want to see Craig Allen do like a full-on, companion card with on YouTube, this would be the one, Craig.
I hate them so much. I hate them.
I think if this is the one though. You're just gonna be so angry. I want you to drink a couple of Pabst Blue Ribbons or Labatt's Blues and just pound them away. Just start funneling and talking shit. Drake, C- or better? UFC Rio Rancho.
Gosh, I have pretty much nothing to add after all that. How can I even follow it, man? I'll say it's like a good C. I'm looking forward to that Shanna Young replacement, man. Come on, she puts on good fights. She's a gamer. Hey, maybe we'll see another upset like Chaos Williams. Macy Chase on. looking to rebound. I'm excited for that fight. That's all I'll add to this. I'm exhausted just from listening to that.
I'll say it's not a C, but it's not a C plus. It's like a C plus. Like that's what it is. Like in the middle of those two, because there are some fights that like I'm really excited for Casey Kenny and Merab Dvalishvili. Like I can't wait for that fight. I think that's a really good one. I am interested in Nathaniel Wood versus Jon Dotson just because I want to see if Nathaniel Wood can be as exciting as he's been through most of his fights against a guy like Jon Dotson, because it's very difficult to do, like Craig said. Main event's interesting, especially coming off of last week. It kind of got set up perfectly, the fight going down the way that it did, and now you get Corey Anderson, Jan Blachowicz really having to step up their game for sure now, because if Corey Anderson goes out and gets a 5-round boring decision, like he does most of the time he fights, he's not getting a title shot. Dominick Reyes can be watching that fight very closely, so that makes things interesting. But overall, the card is not great, but it is an ESPN Plus card, and we're coming off just a crazy bananas card. And when we have cards like this, they're usually better than but way better than we expect them to be. So I'll put it out on that one. Anybody else have anything to add about this epic
just
card?
Quick, Kyle. Just quick. I know this is one other thing that I just want to bring into this. Casual fans of bad TV and television shows that have been canceled in the last 5 years might be very excited for Merab Dvalishvili and Casey Kenny, because if you remember, maybe not just Matt Serra, but the fact that Ray Longo was in an episode of Kevin Can Wait where he said, Harry Connick likes the freaking lasagna. So some people might recognize that, and that's another just great reference to a terrible, terrible Rio Rancho card.
All right, I'm now looking at the card so I can defend myself adequately here. Your main event. Don't just listen to again. I like how Craig, when it's convenient, he's like a Keith. When it's convenient for him, he can blow it off. But if it wasn't convenient for him, he'd be telling us how incredible a Corey Anderson versus Jan Blachowicz fight is, and what it sets up next and what it means for the future. But again, when it suits him, he's just going to dismiss it. So Corey Anderson, Jan Blachowicz, that fight is very, very important for that entire division. Both of them are on streaks, I believe. I don't remember. Jan Blachowicz is like 7 out of his last 8 or something. And then is that right? He's on a kind of a winning streak. And then Corey Anderson is on a win streak here. The co-main event is Diego Sanchez versus Michel Like, seriously? We're just going to dismiss that as the Thunder guy and the bath salts guy? Like, that is an amazing fight. Are you kidding me? And it's in New Mexico. Even better. Devin Clark, Daquan Townsend. I'm not foaming at the mouth for this fight, but it's a good fight. That's a perfectly fine fight. Now, okay, you lose me at Martina De La Rosa versus Mara Barella. I'm not really all on board on that. Brock Weaver, I'm excited to see the debut. And kicking off the main card is Yancy Medeiros, Land of Veneta. Again, I like how Craig very conveniently here just glossed over that bad boy. That is a beautiful fight. Yancy Medeiros, Land of Veneta. Then you go into the prelims. We got a Jim Miller sighting. We got a Ray Borg sighting. Jon Dotson, Nathaniel Wood is awesome. We got a Tim Means sighting. Get out of here. We got a Casey Kenny sighting. I love, again, I'm not crazy here. This is a fight night card. If this was a pay-per-view, I would be shitting all over it, hands down. But it's not. It's a fight night card. I'm into it.
Wow. I mean, this might be the greatest episode of Off the Cuff in the history
Amazing.
of Off the Cuff. We sold you, we unsold you, we in the middle you with UFC Rio Rancho, so we did not increase the viewership whatsoever. It's going to be the same amount as the last ESPN Plus card. So you're welcome, UFC. We appreciate that, and kick us a couple of vigs if you want as well. But after the longest show in the history of the short history of Off the Cuff, we are gonna wrap things up right around the 1 hour and 20-minute mark. Before we do that, we'll give the guys an opportunity to plug their great work here on the network or otherwise. Craig Al, we'll start with you. Anything else you want to get off your chest here? Let the folks know about, especially those 2-minute breakdowns I'm sure you poured your heart and soul into for UFC Rio Rancho.
Yeah, Kyle, so guess what? I said Fight of the Night was going to be Yancy Medeiros and Lando Venata. And if you go to the homepage of Fight Night Picks, I said the people's main event is Pereira and Diego Sanchez. So, yeah.
Except in your argument, you glossed over and made me sound like I was crazy. So,
I made it to the second to last question on Between the Links, and I did not watch the main event at the time. So yeah, I know what I'm doing. No, I tease, but yeah, I'm excited for this weekend. The fights are all right, and we don't have Bellator for another 2 weeks, so you got to get your fill while you can. Next week? Oh boy,
it's a Thackerville card too, isn't it?
Yeah,
and Julia Budd's not on it. Weird.
Kyle, what do you want to talk about?
What, do we not have a Bellator card for 2 weeks, or is it happening this Saturday and we're just not seeing it for 2 weeks?
It's next Friday.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. Maybe it already happened and we're just going to see it a week from now. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what Bellator's plan was. I'll plug the Not Safe for Work MMA show that I record every Sunday with Fred Kirby. Fred Kirby is one of my absolute best friends in the world. So if you guys don't listen to that show, you definitely should. Just make sure, listen, none of the views reflected on that show reflect the network or the fine people that are here on Off the Cuff or anybody in Between the Links, any of the guests, any whatever. And please, if you're going to listen to the show, like, just don't be PC. You can't be woke. Like, you just got to listen to it, understand that we're just talking shit, and just deal with it.
Yeah, Fred is like extra salty these days.
Oh yeah,
I mean he's like a heart attack full of salt. This is great.
Yes, he is.
He's been on another level. I didn't think it was possible for him to get to the level he's been on. But it is what it is. Drake, you got a lot of stuff going on. I'm sure you get some exciting things in the works as well. Would you like to let the folks know about these things?
Yes, I do have some things in the works, but, I usually like to, keep it to myself until it's happened because, I worry. I'm superstitious a little bit like that. But what I've done recently, we talked about the Lima Musashi fight happening at Bellator. I don't know which number it was, you said. But on May 9th, that's a head-to-head against UFC 250. I recently did the complete history of head-to-head events between Bellator and UFC. So that'll be the next one unless something gets booked before that. So you can check that out, that article on my MMA News. I think I'll update it periodically because why not? It'll be a lot easier to do that one by one rather than, 40 events that I put in there? 80 total events, 40 head-to-heads is what that was. So that was a lot. You can check that out. Last week I caught up with Barb Honchak, who is now retired, former flyweight champion of Invicta, the first number one ranked flyweight in the world. It was really interesting to hear, reflecting back on her career and all that. Really good chat. You can check that out. Also on my MMA News. And then just today, dropped a chat with Amanda Lowen, SBG, first female black belt from Oregon, phenomenal grappler, undefeated amateur mixed martial artist. Great chat with her too. Check that out. And you can follow me on my new handle. I think I said it last time, so I won't reach too hard.
Actually, is there 2 Bellator cards next week?
Actually, never mind. I forgot about the second one.
They're Dublin going to card too.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a Bellator bonanza. So that's gonna be exciting. I'll plug a few things because I've been crazy the last few days, but I didn't do a ton for UFC Rio-Rancho, but I have both combatants in the fight I'm looking forward to the most, Casey Kenny and Merab Dvalishvili. You can check those out on my YouTube page, youtube.com/MikeHeckMMA. Interview with Tyson Nam, who's going to be fighting Kai Kara France next weekend. I talked to Julian Erosa, which is just a bananas interview. Like, I was blown away by a lot of things that he was saying. His road to getting released, how he got released before he got released. It's crazy. The whole story is bananas. But he's getting ready to fight on February 22nd, and he also said that the UFC is not done with him yet, despite losing 3 fights in a row and being finished in all 3 of those fights, if memory serves me correctly. In terms of UFC 247, I talked to 6 fighters. James Krause has not made it up there yet because every other fucking reporter talked to James Krause already, so I'm going to give that a little bit of space. But I talked to Lauren Murphy, talked to Andrea Lee. That was a great conversation with Andrea. I talked to Jonathan Martinez, who said he's never fighting in Texas again. And I talked to Journey Newson and Mario Bautista, who got big wins. And then tomorrow I'm talking to Chaos Williams, talking to Yusuf Salal. So I'm basically going to be running through like as many of the UFC 247 winners as possible. And yes, Craig, Jonathan is from Texas, but he's still not going to fight in Texas ever again. He was pissed. It was the most I've ever heard Jonathan Martinez talk in my entire life. And it wasn't a lot of positive stuff out of his mouth. So check all that stuff out. There's a lot of stuff going up there. It's going to be just a crazy week. And I appreciate you guys listening to this show and everything that we're doing. So for Drake, Craig, and Kyle, I am Mike Heck. We'll see you back here next week. No need to be scripted. It's better to be off the cuff.